Hey guys, welcome back to Bow Freaks Outdoors. Hey, it's Daryl. This video here, we're going to be down at Bow Freaks Archery. We're going to go with C. Shannon. We're going to get a look at the new bows for the upcoming season. We're going to go over specs, new changes, pieces and product that have come out that's going to be new for the upcoming season. So check this video out. Hope you guys like what you're seeing. Guys, we're going to catch you on the next one. That's what we do, guys. Stay with us.
Hey everybody, this is Shannon from Bow Freaks Archery, and we've got the new bows in for 2025. So we're going to be covering the Bowtech line, the Darton line, and the Mathews line. So the first one we want to cover is the Proven 34. This one's going to come in two different configurations this year. It's got a standard draw, which is 25 to 30, and it's got a long draw, which is 27.5 to 33. Obviously, they've got the same axle to axle. Speed is 336 on the standard draw and 331 on the long draw. Same poundage, obviously, as far as mass weight, they're 4.7. But you do have a little bit difference in brace height. The standard draw is going to have a 6 5/8 inch brace height, and the long draw is going to have a 7-inch brace height. So they did change up the sight mounting this year, and they've actually moved it to integrate on the inside of the shelf side. It's a little different from last year. So there's probably only going to be initially there's probably only going to be a few sites that are going to work with that that are going to have enough ride adjustment to get over for your windage as far as your sight lining up with your arrow. So obviously Black Gold will probably be the first one to hit the market with something that's going to work with these. It does still have the integrated rest option for the back, and basically kind of the same kind of grip style that's adjustable on it. And then everything else is kind of the same too as far as the flex guards and stuff. Changed up the cam a little bit, but it does have the time lock on it, and it does have the dead lock on it. So those features are still in here. A little bit smoother of a draw on these, a little more of a rounded cam, not quite as aggressive as some of the past. So that's the Proven 34 for this year. The next one from Bowtech is the Solution LS. So this one's a little bit different. It's coming in for the draw length of 24.5 to 30 inches. It's a 30-inch axle-to-axle bow, 330 feet a second, so it's a touch slower than the Proven 34. A little lighter though, it's 4.2 pounds, so we're getting down to a pretty nice weight for a bow. And it's got a 6 3/8 brace height, so pretty decent brace height. So a nice little compact hunting bow. A couple of features though they left out of this one. So this one does not have the option for the integrated mounting for your sight, and it does not have the integration for the rest on the back, on the back of the shelf for your rest. It also doesn't have the timing adjustments on it like the Proven does for this year, but it does have the deadlock. So it's missing a few features off of the flagship bow from Bowtech for 2025, but it does have a little less on the price tag, so that should help somebody that's wanting to get into a Bowtech, especially with the deadlock, which is an awesome little tuning system to have to be able to get one a little bit cheaper than the flagship for this year. So next one we're going to talk about, we've got some of the Darton stuff this year. So they've got basically 4 bows out this year. The first one they have is their budget bow. It's a Consequence 2. It's basically just a remake of the Consequence last year, which I think was best budget bow, winning that award from, I don't remember if it was Bow Hunters or what, but it won budget bow of the year last year. Kind of made some upgrades to that, and again, all 4 of these bows that we're going to talk about from Darton have the same cam on them and the same roller system on it. So a lot of features in the Consequence for the price point that it comes in at. On that Consequence 2, it's a 325 to 331, just depending on your draw length in there. For the IBO, the axle, it's a pretty short bow. It's 29 and a half, and then it's got a brace height of 7.5 inches. 4.3 pounds on the mass weight of that bow, and the draw goes from 26 to 31 and a half. So it's a short, compact bow, and it makes a great budget bow. It doesn't have the features that like the Sequel 31, 33, and 35 have on it, as far as the integration for the rest on the back. As well as the 31, the 33, and the 35 also have a couple tuning features on them this year. So what they've done is they've actually integrated into the limb pocket basically a bolt hole that's threaded, and depending on which way you need to lean your cam for your horizontal tuning, you would move this bolt from left to right and drive it in or out to kind of manipulate that limb each way to get out any horizontal issues that you have. It also has the ability to time the cams without putting it in a press. It's got the system right here, and it's got a little set screw in it, and you loosen that set screw up, and then you can actually turn this peg post here on the bottom of it, and it'll actually either twist up or untwist your cables, which would obviously affect your timing of your bow. You're still going to need a draw board or somebody with you that can tell which cam is ahead or behind the other one to make that adjustment, but that's available only on the Sequel 31, 33, and 35. And basically what you're getting with those is a 31-inch axle, 33-inch axle, and a 35-inch axle. All of them are going to weigh pretty close to the same. They're 4.6 to 4.7 pounds on the mass weight, depending if you're into the short one or long one. But the draw lengths do differ a little bit. Your 31 and your 33 are going to go from 25 or 25 and a half to 30 and a half, while your 35 is going to go from 26 to 31 and a half. So you can get a little longer draw length on the 35. And the IBOs are in the mid 330s to 341, just depending on which one of those bows. But they packed a lot of features in it. It's got a good looking riser. It's the same riser that they had on the Sequels from last year. It's got nice cutouts. It looks like a nice bow. It actually feels like a nice bow, and probably one of the smoothest bows that we've got in the shop right now as far as the draw cycle. Very consistent start to end. Doesn't really have any big humps either on the beginning or the end of the draw cycle. So just a really nice bow to shoot. So again, got 4 bows from Darton, the Consequence 2, Sequel 31, Sequel 33, and the Sequel 35, and we have all of those in stock if you wanted to stop in and test them. So the next bows we want to talk about is the Mathews lineup. So they carried over the lift from last year in the 29.5 and the 33. So they've got they're called the Lift X 29.5 and a Lift X 33. Basically same risers. Everything's basically the same on these bows, with the exception of the way that they're going to tune for horizontal issues. So Bowtech has the deadlock system, which is actually driving your cam left and right to make it lean or lean left or right, depending on what you need to do with that arrow. So it's actually moving that cam along that axle. The way Mathews has kind of gotten around that is they have kind of the same thing. You're going to pull the axle lock bolt off the outside, pull the washer off, and there's actually a bolt in there that's actually driving basically the mod side limb is actually going to start moving out or in. So it's either going to go farther away from that cam or closer to that cam, which is going to give that cam more or less leverage on it, which will allow it to lean whichever direction you need to correct for your horizontal issues. So what it does is it keeps the cam basically in the same position in relationship to the left limb on a right-handed bow. So that kind of keeps that cam centered without driving it really far left or right in there, but it's allowing it to get you to do the same kind of tuning for your horizontal issues by moving that limb further away from that cam or closer to the cam, which should obviously give it more leverage on that limb, which will let it lean a little more or less to correct those horizontal issues. So a pretty slick system for them to come up with something like that to give the guys that want to do some tuning themselves. It will take a little longer to change strings and cables on these because you've always had to pull the axles on these before. But prior to this, you would take the lock bolt off the outside and just push the axle out. And then, you get your yoke and get your yokes put on it that way. This one, you're actually going to pull that bolt off the same way, but you're actually going to have to drive that axle out of that limb and then slide it out. So it will take a little bit longer to change strings and cables, but it gives you a great tuning option. So again, not too much different between the 29.5 and 33 from last year, but just give you some quick specs. The 29.5 is obviously a 29.5 inch axle to axle. IBO is about 348. Brace height 6 inches, and it's 3.99 pounds. Draw length on the 29.5 goes from 24.5 to 30. And then on the Lift X33, we've got 343, obviously 33 inch axle to axle. Brace height 6.5, so a little bit longer brace height on the 33 version. 4.26 pounds, so still really light for a 33 inch bow to be 4.26. And it does 26 to 31.5 on the draw. And again, it still uses the Switchweight X mods from last year, so you have options for 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, and 80 pounds in your specific draw length, on top of 85 or 80% let off. So there's a lot of options in there for peak weight on the bows, as well as let off and draw length. So I'm probably going to do the XD next. So the other one we want to talk about is the Lift XD. So the Atlas was the long draw bow that had been in the lineup for a couple years now, but it was prior to a lot of the bridge lock technology. So they came out with the XD this year. So it has the bridge lock technology for your sight and your stabilizer. Has integrated for the rest on the back, so it's got all the features that the Lift had last year. It's just in a longer version of it. So this bow is actual 33 inch axle bow. It's got a 363 IBO, but that's at 33.5 inches. Brace height's a little bit longer on this one, so it's 6 3/4. Still relatively light bow. It's 4.31 pounds, so a really good weight for the guys that have a longer draw. So, and let's talk about the draw on this. It's basically a 32 inches to 33.5 inch draw length for this bow. It does have a much larger cam, and it uses the Switchweight X mods, but it per Matthews specs, you're only supposed to use the A, B, C, or D mods in this one. So that's why there's only a 32 to 33.5 inch draw length on this. So basically it takes over where the 33 ends at 31.5. If you're longer than 31.5, you'd go into the Lift XD, and that picks up at 32 and again goes to 33.5. So for those really tall guys and I guess gals out there, this is your option for this year, the Lift XD. Don't have a Lift RS in stock because we sold it already, but that's kind of this is kind of a unique bow in that it's a 27 3/4 inch axle bow. It's got a 353 IBO. Again, that's rated because of the different draw lengths it does, but 5.5 inch brace height, 3.92 pounds, so it's actually the lightest bow they make. And then it's got a 23.5 to 29 inch on the draw. Where this one is different, it has two options on the limbs. Where all the Switchweight limbs in the past have just been one deflection of limb, and the mod controlled the range, whether it's 55 to 80 or whatever it was. The Lift RS actually has a set of light limbs and a heavier limb. So the light limb, just for example, with a 70 pound mod on the light limbs, it actually tops out at 52 pounds. So that gives you a much lower range to get down into those young adults, or a lady that's wanting to get into the 30-some pounds. They can actually get into an RS and go down to 55-pound mods, which actually drop it down to under 40 at that point for the max weight. So it's made for young adults that need a lower poundage but still want to get into that bow. But it's going to top out at 60 pounds with the 80-pound mods on it, if I remember correctly. Now, if you are just a guy or somebody else that wants to go past that on weight, you can do the regular limbs on it, which will then the mods would actually match the mount that's shown on those mods, but you'd have to order that RS in with the heavy limbs at that point. It's still going to have the same axle, same brace height. It's basically the same bow. It's just changing the limb deflection to get to a much heavier set of limbs for somebody that wants a short bow that doesn't have longer than a 29-inch draw. So shorter guys or ladies that want a nice short axle bow that's going to be pretty quick for them, that's going to be a real hit for them, especially at 3.92 pounds, super lightweight bow. So that's the Lift RS this year. So, and then we want to kind of cover a couple things that changed on the Mathews side this year too. They've actually come out with 3 different grips that are options, obviously, and on top of some color options too. So they've got basically the Engage, which will come on it this year, which is very similar in the feel of, I'm going to say the feel, more of the dimension and shape as the grips from the past, but they've ran a different kind of textured area in the center on this. And they come in color options too, so you can get that. But they come out one, this is the one I really like. It's called the Contour. And you can tell it's got a little bit of a swell here for kind of your finger, your index finger and your thumb placement to go in there. It has a really good natural fit. I really like this grip. This will probably be the one we sell the most of as far as the aftermarket grips from them. So again, that was Engage, which was similar in dimension to the last year's grip, and then we got the Contour, and then they got one that's a taper. And this is probably going to fit guys that have a little bit bigger hand, because they're a little bit wider up at the top and then kind of taper down. So gives you a little bit different feel, especially if you like a little bit bigger of grip. So they've got 3 grips out this year that you can change out on your bow, and they will go back on previous year bows and work as well as on those as well. And then they partnered obviously with UV. So there's different pin configurations coming out, but what we got in originally was a 5-pin with our sample pack. So if you've seen the UVs from the past, it's much longer housing up here, so they shortened that up. They've covered the fibers completely different. It is substantially brighter than the standard UV out of the box, and the rest of the slider is basically the same, except for they actually added a 20-yard or a hard stop on the top of this and integrated it in, so you do actually have a hard stop on this. So again, that's something different this year. They'll have this in a 3-pin, a single pin, and a 5-pin. We've obviously got the 5-pin in. I think I've got some of the other ones getting ready to show up on the other housings, but that's another option from Mathews this year, that they partnered with the UV on the slider. So if you have any questions, just shoot us a message or give us a call, and we'd be happy to answer them, and we appreciate your time.
Hey guys, so I hope you like what you saw there on the video. If you guys want to see these products, test these bros, go see Shannon, Bow Freaks Archery, Mount Vernon, Missouri. Guys, we'll see you on the next one. Bow Freaks Outdoors.